Hey everyone, back with me again, Joseph, your host, and welcome back to Catechism for Kids. We're so excited to share another amazing story with you today. All about a super special saint who reminds us that being humble and serving others is one of the coolest ways to follow Jesus. Get ready to meet Saint Maglorius of Wales. Imagine a long, long time ago, back in the 6th century. That's like over 1,400 years ago. In a beautiful land called Wales, there lived a kind and holy bishop named Saint Maglorius. He wasn't just any bishop. He was a friend to another famous saint, Saint Samson of Dol. And together, they worked hard to share the good news of Jesus Christ. They journeyed across Wales and even to a place called Brittany in France, teaching people about God's love with such gentleness and kindness. They were like the ultimate peace spreaders. What made Saint Maglorius really stand out was his incredible humility. You see, even though he was an important bishop, he chose to live a simple life, almost like a monk. He spent his days praying, working hard, and always looking out for the poor. He showed everyone that being holy isn't about how much power you have or how famous you are. It's about listening to God's whisper in your heart and showing love to others in small, faithful ways every single day. One day, Maglorius felt God calling him to an even quieter life. So what did he do? He peacefully stepped away from his big bishop job and went to live on the beautiful island of Jersey. There he built a small monastery, a special place for prayer and work, and just kept on serving people with a joyful heart. He really understood that true greatness comes from serving others, just like Jesus taught us. Without further ado, let's dive deeper into his story. We'll find out exactly who Saint Maglorius of Wales was, how he spread faith with so much peace and kindness, and why being humble actually brings us closer to God. Most importantly, we'll discover how we can all follow Jesus by serving quietly and lovingly every single day. The Bible gives us a super important message about this. In Matthew 20:26, Jesus tells us, "Whoever wants to become great among you must be your servant." Saint Maglorius totally lived this out. Saint Maglorius was born in Wales, probably at the very end of the 5th century. He was actually cousins with Saint Samson. Both of them were super lucky because they were guided by a wise teacher, Abbot Iltot, who taught them all about science and how to grow closer to God. When it was time for them to choose their path in life, Samson decided to go to a monastery, which is like a special religious community. Maglorius, though, went back home and continued to practice all the Christian good habits in his everyday life. But then, something amazing happened. Samson's father, Ammon, became very ill. He called for Samson and prayed to God for healing. When he got better, he realized that God was more important than anything else. He gave away all his possessions and decided to dedicate his life entirely to the Lord, along with his whole family. This really inspired Maglorius, who was so touched that he went to Samson with his own father, Umbraphel, his mother Aphrel, and his 2 brothers. They all decided to leave their worldly lives behind. They distributed all their belongings to the poor and to the churches. Maglorius and his father became especially close to Samson, learning from him and eventually getting permission to join the monastery and wear the monastic habit, which is the special clothing monks wear. Morphel, Maglorius' father, was even sent to Ireland later to lead other monasteries there. When Saint Samson became a bishop, he didn't forget about Maglorius. He brought Maglorius, who had become a deacon, along with him to a place called Armorica to help him in his important work of spreading the gospel. They had the support of King Chilbert, and soon they were able to found many monasteries. Samson made his home in a monastery in Dol, and he put Maglorius in charge of another one called Caerphont. He even ordained Maglorius as a priest so he could eventually take over the bishop's duties there. Maglorius followed in Samson's footsteps, preaching the gospel to the people living along the coast of Brittany. Many of these people were already Christians, but because of wars and other difficult times, their understanding of Jesus had become a bit weak or even forgotten. So, Maglorius worked tirelessly to remind them of God's love. He continued to live a very simple life with his monks. Can you believe he wore a hair shirt under his clothes? It was a bit scratchy, but he did it to remind himself to stay humble. He mostly ate barley bread and vegetables, and only a little fish on Sundays and holidays. His passion and his kindness were so strong that he rarely rested. Sometimes he was so busy serving that he didn't even stop to eat all day. After 3 years as a bishop, Maglorius felt a strong desire to live in solitude, a quiet life alone with God. There were some disagreements happening between the leaders in Brittany, and he believed God wanted him to completely step away from the world for a while. After getting permission from the people, he decided to leave his position. A wonderful bishop named Budak, known for his passion and good heart, took his place. However, some other bishops in France weren't too happy about a bishop just leaving his post like that, and they made rules to prevent it from happening again. But Maglorius wasn't seeking praise, he was seeking God. He became even stricter with himself in his prayers and daily life, burning with the desire to be united with God in the most intimate way. He tried to avoid talking to people as much as possible, but guess what? His reputation for holiness was so strong that people still found him. He came from all over, seeking help for their souls and bodies. If he received any small gifts, he immediately gave them to the poor. Finally, he just couldn't handle the constant stream of visitors, so he decided to try and find an even more secluded place where no one would know him. However, when he consulted Bishop Budak wisely told him that the good works he was doing for so many people were more important than his personal desire for retirement. So Maglorius stayed, and his fame grew even more as miracles happened through him every day. A count named Loiscun, whom Maglorius had healed of leprosy, gave him land on the island of Guernsey. Maglorius built a church there and founded a monastery, gathering more than 60 monks. During a terrible famine, after King Chilperic's death, the monastery became a refuge, providing food for countless people in need. Even though their supplies were running low, Maglorius refused to reduce the number of his monks, trusting completely in God. And guess what? His faith was rewarded. A ship loaded with provisions mysteriously landed on the island, bringing all the relief they needed. It was a true miracle. On Easter night the following year, Maglorius received a special message from heaven, letting him know that his time on earth was coming to an end. From that moment on, he hardly ever left the church, unless it was absolutely necessary or to help someone. He often repeated these beautiful words from the Psalms: "I ask only one thing of the Lord, and that is to dwell in his house all the days of my life." 6 months later, on October 24th, 575, Saint Maglorius passed away at around 80 years old. What an incredible life of service. Even after his death, Saint Maglorius continued to be a source of wonder. During difficult wars, his relics, special items connected to him, were moved to Paris for safety. They were kept in various churches, and eventually, a church in Paris was even named Saint Maglorius in his honor. Saint Maglorius was also known for some pretty amazing miracles. One of the most famous stories tells of a group of children playing in an old boat wreck on a beach near his monastery in Sark. A sudden, violent storm swept them out to sea. When Maglorius heard their cries, he swam out into the dangerous waters, saved the children, and somehow guided the wrecked boat safely back to shore before mysteriously disappearing. How incredible is that? Other miracles attributed to him include destroying a dragon on the island of Jersey, bringing a drowned fisherman of Sark back to life, and even chasing away a fleet of fearsome Vikings. God truly worked through him in powerful ways. Even after he went to heaven, his protection continued. There's a story that after his death, Sark was attacked by Vikings again. They sacked the monastery and sadly killed the monks. But when 7 of these Vikings tried to open Saint Maglorius's tomb, they were suddenly blinded, and many of the other Vikings mysteriously turned on each other. It was a powerful sign of God's protection through his saint. Saint Maglorius is a wonderful example of humble service, a patron saint of the island of Jersey, and an inspiration for monks and missionaries. His feast day is October 24th, and his liturgical color is white, symbolizing peace, purity, and humble holiness. So, what can we learn from Saint Maglorius today? We learn that even if we're not bishops or living in monasteries, we can all practice humility. We can serve others in small ways, helping a friend, being kind to our family, sharing what we have. A simple acts of love bring us closer to God and help spread his peace in the world. Thank you so much for joining us for this inspiring story of Saint Maglorius of Wales. I hope you learned something new and feel encouraged to serve others with joy and humility. If you loved this video, please give us a big thumbs up, share it with your friends, and don't forget to subscribe to our St. Joseph's Corner channel. You don't miss out on any of our future adventures with Jesus, Mary, and the saints. Take care, everyone. Stay safe and healthy as usual. See you next time, and God bless.